Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at how businesses set goals and make those tough decisions.
Yeah. Whether you're thinking about starting your own business or just curious about how things work behind the scenes.
It's always fascinating to peek behind the curtain, right?
And absolutely. And what's really interesting is that a lot of people think businesses are all about, just making money.
Right. Profit, profit, profit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than that. Our sources today dive deep into how businesses actually have goals that go way beyond the bottom line.
I love that. So it's not just about the Benjamins.
Definitely not.
Okay, I'm intrigued. One of the sources uses this car analogy that I thought was pretty clever. It says that just like a driver needs a destination to get where they're going, businesses need clear goals to give them direction.
Makes sense.
Totally. So what happens when a business doesn't have those goals? What's the risk?
Well, it's like, think about it this way. If you're setting out on a journey without a map or GPS, you could end up anywhere, right?
Yeah, you're just driving around aimlessly.
Exactly. And for a business, that can mean wasted resources, missed opportunities, even failure.
Ooh, that's a scary thought. So how do businesses avoid getting lost?
Well, that's where vision and mission statements come in. It's fascinating to see how even giant companies like Woolworths rely on these statements to guide their decisions.
Woolworths, like the grocery store.
Yeah. I mean, their vision statement is to create better experiences together for a better tomorrow.
That sounds pretty aspirational.
It is, but it's more than just words. It actually informs everything they do, from sourcing products to customer service to sustainability initiatives.
So it's not just some PR fluff they put on their website.
Not at all. It's a real roadmap for how they operate.
That's really cool. So I guess even the biggest companies need a sense of direction.
Absolutely. Without that sense of purpose, it's easy to lose sight of what matters, and then how do you even measure success?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we've got these vision and mission statements guiding the way. But how do you translate those big ideas into actual achievable goals? Our sources keep mentioning this concept of SMART goals. And as you know, I'm a sucker for a good acronym. So let's break it down. What makes these goals so smart?
All right, so SMART is more than just a catchy word. It's actually an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay, I'm already feeling smarter just hearing that.
Right, so each of those elements is crucial for setting goals that you can actually achieve.
I see. So it's not just about saying I want to be successful. It's about breaking that down into manageable steps.
Exactly. So for example, instead of saying I want to increase website traffic, a SMART goal would be something like I want to increase website traffic by 20% in the next quarter.
Ooh, that's much more specific and measurable. I like it.
And that's the point. When you have that level of clarity, you can actually track your progress and adjust your strategies as needed.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture here. But what about the other letters in the acronym?
Well, A stands for attainable. It means you need to be realistic about what you can actually achieve. It's great to dream big, but your goals should also be something you can actually accomplish with the resources and time you have available.
I think I might be guilty of setting some unattainable goals in the past.
It happens to the best of us, but that's why this framework is so useful. It forces you to think critically about what's truly possible.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between ambition and feasibility.
Exactly. And that brings us to R for relevant.
Okay, so how do you know if a goal is relevant?
You need to ask yourself, does this goal actually align with my overall vision for the business? It's easy to get caught up in trends or shiny objects, but your goal should always be driving you towards your ultimate destination.
So you don't want to get sidetracked by something that's not actually going to move the needle.
Right. And finally, we have T for time-bound.
Deadlines. I knew it.
They're essential. Without a deadline, it's easy to procrastinate or lose momentum. A time frame creates that sense of urgency and accountability that keeps you moving forward.
So SMART goals are like a roadmap to success. We've got our destination, we've got our timeline, and we've got all the milestones along the way.
Exactly. It's a powerful framework for setting yourself up for success.
Okay, so we've got our SMART goals all figured out, but what kind of goals are we actually talking about here? The source breaks down 3 main types of goals that businesses often pursue.
Yeah, they are financial, social, and personal.
Okay, so let's start with the most obvious one, financial goals. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, as you might guess, financial goals are all about the numbers. We're talking about things like profit, sales, market share, return on investment.
Okay, so the bottom line stuff.
Exactly. For a lot of businesses, maximizing profit is the primary objective, but it's not always as straightforward as it sounds.
Right. I imagine there are different ways to approach that.
Absolutely. Some businesses might focus on cutting costs, while others prioritize increasing sales volume, and then there are those that aim for a balance of both.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. It depends on the specific industry, the business model, the competitive landscape, all sorts of factors.
Makes sense. And the source actually mentioned some really interesting examples of companies pursuing financial goals through expansion, like the Qantas JetSet merger and Coca-Cola's acquisition of Never Fail Spring Water.
Those are pretty big deals.
Yeah, I remember those making headlines. It's fascinating to see how these companies leverage mergers and acquisitions to grow their market share and increase revenue.
Absolutely. It's a high-stakes game, but when it works, it can be incredibly lucrative.
So it's not just about making money, it's about making the right kind of money move.
Exactly. You have to be strategic about it.
Okay, so we've talked about the financial side of things, but what about the social impact? It seems like more and more businesses are focusing on social goals these days, right?
You're absolutely right. Social goals are becoming increasingly important for businesses that want to not only make a profit, but also make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, it's not just about shareholders anymore, it's about stakeholders.
Exactly. So social goals can involve things like supporting local communities, promoting social justice, embracing ecological sustainability, all sorts of initiatives.
The Body Shop is highlighted in one of our sources as a company that really walks the walk when it comes to social responsibility.
Oh yeah, they're a great example.
I've always admired their commitment to fair trade and environmental protection.
Right, and they've been doing it for decades. It's not just a marketing ploy for them. It's woven into the fabric of their business.
I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's authentic.
Absolutely. They champion fair trade practices, they vehemently oppose animal testing, and they actively support human rights and environmental protection.
It's inspiring to see a company putting their values into action like that.
And it's not just the Body Shop. The source also mentions Westpac and IBM as examples of companies integrating social objectives into their operations.
Really? What are they doing?
Well, they're going beyond just making donations or sponsoring events. They're implementing specific programs to train and hire people with disabilities, for example.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, they're adapting their workspaces, offering flexible work arrangements, really walking the walk when it comes to inclusion.
It's like they're saying, we're not just talking about change, we're making change.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered financial goals and social goals. What about the individual behind the business? The source also mentions something called personal goals.
Ah, yes. Personal goals. These are often less visible than financial or social goals, but they're no less important.
So what are we talking about here?
These are the deeply personal motivations that drive the entrepreneur, the fuel that keeps them going.
So things like achieving financial security, pursuing a fulfilling career, making a difference in the world.
Exactly. It's about what drives the individual at the helm of the business.
If you were starting a business, what personal goals would be driving your decisions?
That's a great question. I think for me, it would be about creating something innovative and impactful.
Yeah.
Something that solves a real problem and contributes something positive to society.
I love that. It's about leaving the world a little bit better than you found it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a sentiment that resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs. It's not just about building a business, it's about building something meaningful.
Okay, so we've talked about the why behind business goals, the financial, social, and personal motivations that drive those goals. But how do these goals actually translate into action? How do businesses make those tough decisions?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And luckily, our source outlines a 5-step decision-making process that businesses can use to navigate complex situations and make informed choices.
Ooh, 5 steps. Sounds intriguing. I'm all ears.
Okay, so step 1 is to develop clear goals.
Wait a minute. Haven't we already talked about goals?
We have, but this is about getting even more specific. It's about defining the desired outcome or position for this particular decision. What are you aiming to achieve with this choice, and how will you measure success?
Okay, so it's like setting mini goals within the larger framework of the business goals.
Exactly. You need that clear target to aim for.
Got it. So we've got our goals locked in. What's step 2?
Step 2 is to outline the facts.
Okay, so this is the information gathering stage. What kind of facts are we talking about here?
It's about gathering all the relevant information related to the decision you're facing. What are the current market conditions? What resources do you have available? What are the potential risks and challenges?
So it's like doing your due diligence before making a big investment.
You got it. You want to have a clear understanding of the playing field before you make any moves.
Okay. Knowledge is power.
Mhm.
Makes sense. So what's step 3?
Step 3 is all about identifying alternative solutions.
Okay, so this is where we get to brainstorm.
Exactly. This is where you put on your creative thinking cap and explore different possibilities. Don't limit yourself to the most obvious solution. Think outside the box.
I love that. It's all about expanding your options before narrowing down your focus. So we've got our goals, we've gathered the facts, and we've brainstormed a bunch of ideas. What's next?
Now it's time to analyze those alternatives and weigh the potential consequences of each one.
Okay, so step 4 is where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. What are the pros and cons of each option? What resources would each require? What are the potential risks and rewards?
Sounds like this step involves a lot of critical thinking and careful consideration.
It does. You might even need to do a cost-benefit analysis to really dig into the details.
I can see how that would be important for making a well-informed decision.
Absolutely. And it ties back to what we talked about earlier with the attainable aspect of SMART goals. Even the most brilliant idea is useless if you don't have the resources or the infrastructure to make it happen.
So it's not just about what you want to do, it's about what you can do.
Right. You have to be realistic. And finally, we arrive at step 5, choosing one alternative and implementing it.
This is the moment of truth.
It is. It's time to make a decision and put your plan into action. But remember, even the best laid plans can go awry.
Oh, you're going to make me nervous.
Don't worry too much. The key is to be flexible and adaptable, ready to adjust your course if necessary.
So it's not just about making a decision and then sticking to it no matter what.
Not at all. You have to be able to pivot and respond to change. The business world is constantly evolving.
So agility is key.
Absolutely.
This 5-step process seems incredibly valuable not just for business leaders, but for anyone facing a tough decision.
I agree. It's a framework that encourages thoughtful consideration, thorough analysis, and informed action.
It takes the guesswork out of decision-making.
Right. It helps you approach complex situations with confidence.
So whether you're launching a startup, navigating a career change, or just trying to make a big life decision, remember these 5 steps. Set clear goals, outline the facts, identify alternatives, analyze those alternatives, and then choose the best path forward.
And don't be afraid to adjust your course along the way.
I love that. It's a reminder that we're all constantly learning and growing.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from SMART goals and vision statements to the different types of goals businesses pursue and that 5-step decision-making process. It's been a fascinating deep dive into the inner workings of the business world.
What's fascinating to me is that business isn't just about numbers and profits. It's about people, purpose, and the impact we make on the world.
That's a great point. And as technology continues to evolve, it'll be interesting to see how businesses adapt and innovate in the years to come.
Absolutely. The only constant is change, and businesses that can embrace that change are the ones that will thrive.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new today and feel inspired to approach your own goals and decisions with clarity and confidence.
And remember, stay curious. There's always more to learn and discover.
Until next time.
They're all about a business's commitment to doing good, ethical practices, making a positive impact.
So it's not just about making money, it's about making a difference.
Exactly. And this can involve a whole range of initiatives, like supporting local communities, promoting social justice, embracing ecological sustainability.
Yeah, it's like businesses are realizing they have a responsibility to be good citizens.
Absolutely.
One of our sources actually highlights the Body Shop as a company that really stands out in this area.
Oh, yeah, they're a classic example.
I've always been impressed by their commitment to fair trade and environmental protection.
And they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
It's not just a recent trend for them.
Right, it's part of their DNA.
Exactly. They really walk the walk.
So what kind of things do they do specifically?
Well, they champion fair trade practices. They're totally against animal testing, and they actively support human rights and environmental protection.
It's really inspiring to see a company putting their values into action like that.
And it shows that you can be profitable and socially responsible.
You don't have to choose one or the other.
Exactly.
The source also mentions Westpac and IBM as examples of companies integrating social objectives into their operations.
Yeah, those are great examples, too.
What are they doing?
Well, they've gone beyond just, donating money or sponsoring events.
Okay.
They've actually implemented specific programs to train and hire people with disabilities, for instance.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they're adapting their workspaces, offering flexible work arrangements,
Yeah.
really making an effort to be inclusive.
That's awesome.
It's about taking action, not just talking about it.
So it's not just about saying the right things, it's about doing the right things.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about financial goals. We've talked about social goals now. What about the individual behind the business? The source mentioned something called personal goals.
Ah, yes. Personal goals.
What are those all about?
Well, these are the goals that are specific to the entrepreneur, the person running the show.
Okay, so it's not necessarily about the business itself, but about the person driving the business.
Exactly. And these goals are often less visible than financial or social goals, but they're no less important.
So what kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, it could be anything that motivates the entrepreneur on a personal level,
Okay.
like achieving financial security,
Right.
pursuing a fulfilling career, making a difference in the world. It's really about what drives that individual.
I guess it makes sense. Everyone has their own motivations.
Absolutely.
If you were starting a business, what personal goals would be driving your decisions?
That's a good question. I think for me, it would be about creating something innovative and impactful.
Okay.
Something that solves a real problem and contributes something positive to society.
I love that it's about leaving the world a little bit better than you found it.
Exactly. And I think that resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs. It's not just about building a business.
It's about building something meaningful.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the why behind business goals. The financial, the social, the personal motivations that drive those goals. But how do these goals actually translate into action? How do businesses make those tough decisions?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
Well, luckily, our source outlines a 5-step decision-making process that businesses can use to navigate those tricky situations.
Ooh, a 5-step process. Tell me more.
Okay, so step 1 is to develop clear goals.
Wait a minute. Haven't we already talked about goals?
We have, but this is about getting even more specific.
Okay.
Really defining the desired outcome for this particular decision. What are you trying to achieve with this specific choice?
Got it. So it's like zooming in on one particular decision within the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our super specific goals. What's step 2?
Step 2 is to outline the facts.
So this is where we gather all the information.
Precisely. It's about doing your research, understanding the situation as best you can.
So what kind of facts are we talking about here?
No, it depends on the decision, of course.
Right.
But it could include things like, market research,
Right.
financial data competitor analysis.
So it's about getting a clear picture of the landscape before you make any moves.
Exactly.
Knowledge is power.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, so what's step 3?
Step 3 is all about brainstorming.
Brainstorming, love it.
Yeah, this is where you let your creativity run wild, explore all the different options, even the ones that seem a little crazy at first.
Okay, so don't hold back.
Exactly. The more ideas, the better.
And then you can narrow it down later.
Right. So once you've got a good list of potential solutions, it's time for step 4,
Which is?
analyzing those alternatives.
Okay, so now we're getting down to business.
This is where you have to put on your critical thinking cap and really weigh the pros and cons of each option.
So it's not just about coming up with ideas, it's about evaluating those ideas.
Right. You have to consider things like the potential risks and rewards.
Oh.
The resources required, the feasibility of each option.
Sounds like a lot to think about.
It is, but it's an important step. You don't want to jump into something without carefully considering all the angles.
Makes sense. So once you've analyzed all the options, what's the final step?
The final step is to make a decision and implement it.
Moment of truth.
Exactly. It's time to put your plan into action, but even the best laid plans can go awry.
You're making me nervous again.
Don't worry, the key is to be flexible and adaptable.
So you have to be prepared to adjust your course if necessary.
Absolutely. The business world is constantly changing. You have to be able to roll with the punches.
I like that. So it's not just about making a decision and then sticking to it no matter what.
Not at all. You have to be able to pivot and respond to new information.
So agility is key.
Exactly.
This 5-step process seems incredibly valuable, not just for business leaders, but for anyone facing a tough decision.
I couldn't agree more. It's a framework that can help you make more informed and confident choices.
So whether you're launching a startup, navigating a career change, or just trying to figure out what to have for dinner tonight.
Right.
Remember these 5 steps.
Set clearer goals.
Outline the facts.
Identify alternatives.
Analyze those alternatives.
And choose the best path forward.
I love it. It's a roadmap for decision-making.
Exactly. It's like gathering all the relevant information. Like what are the current market conditions? What resources are available? What are the potential risks and challenges?
It's kind of like doing your due diligence, right? Making sure you have all your ducks in a row before you jump in.
Exactly. It's about having a solid understanding of the situation before making any decisions.
Okay, so we've got our goals. We've outlined the facts. What's next?
Step 3 is about identifying alternative solutions.
Ah, the brainstorming phase. I love this part.
Yeah, it's where you get to be creative, think outside the box, explore different possibilities.
So don't just settle for the first solution that comes to mind.
Right? Sometimes the most obvious solution isn't the best one. So it's important to really explore your options.
I like that. So we've got a whole bunch of ideas now. What?
Now it's time to analyze those alternatives. Really weigh the potential consequences of each one.
Okay, so step 4 is where we get down to the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. It's about asking those tough questions.
Like it.
What are the pros and cons of each option?
Okay.
What resources would each require? What are the potential risks and rewards?
It's like doing a cost-benefit analysis, right?
Exactly. And it ties back to what we talked about earlier with the attainable aspect of SMART goals.
Right.
Even the most brilliant idea won't work if you don't have the resources to make it happen.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between what you want to do and what you can actually do.
Absolutely. And finally, we arrive at step 5, choosing one alternative and implementing it.
The moment of truth.
It's time to make a decision and put your plan into action, but even the best laid plans can go awry.
Oh, no, you're making me nervous again.
Don't worry. The key is to be flexible and adaptable. Be prepared to adjust your course if necessary.
So it's not about being rigid and sticking to the plan no matter what.
Right. The business world is constantly changing. You need to be able to adapt and evolve.
So agility is crucial.
Absolutely.
This 5-step process seems incredibly valuable, not just for business leaders, but for anyone facing a tough decision.
I agree. It's a framework that encourages thoughtful decision-making.
And helps you approach challenges with confidence.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from SMART goals and vision statements to the different types of goals businesses pursue, and that 5-step decision-making process. It's been a fascinating deep dive into the world of business.
What's really struck me is how much more to it there is than just, making money.
Right.
It's about people. It's about purpose. It's about making a positive impact.
And as technology continues to evolve, it'll be interesting to see how these concepts continue to shape the business world.
Absolutely. The only constant is change.
And the businesses that can embrace that change are the ones that will thrive.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned a thing or two about how businesses set goals and make decisions.
And remember, stay curious.
There's always more to discover until next time.